Hi, I'm Wild Bill, both social and geopolitical affairs correspondent for RedBeard Pirate Radio. And today I would like to address the unrest that we've been seeing. Protests on campus, civil unrest, difference of opinion, or perhaps something more sinister. Civil unrest and blatant disobedience. I've seen it all before. What's my take on it, other than the reporter claiming tanks were being used in one video, which is clickbait? Among other things, it's war on the middle class in the form of teachers and administrators, a common tactic best employed in the early days of the Soviet Union, when they called the middle class the bourgeoisie. If the schools close, it will little affect those at the top, but it will drive teachers, campus work staff, and administrators into the job market, starting over at zero, where potential for upward movement has lately stalled. This is fallout from national interference in the social affairs of other nations. We do not only compete with other nations for shares of market or control of resources, we also compete with propaganda, as in Radio Free Europe and the other side's similar programs, and covert investment into radical and oppositional factions within each competing nation. Another good illustration of how convoluted this sort of tactic can be lies in Tsarist Russia, when the government planted agents in every radical group's roster. It ended up with the government money buying bombs and guns used in terroristic attacks against the government. There is Chinese and Russian money funding some of this activity in our own nation today, just as there was during the 60s and 70s, when the protests against the Vietnam War were better attended than the ones we see now. Similarly, we're doing it to them in the form of investment in terror groups, the CIA in Afghanistan during the Soviet occupation, for instance, or opposition groups in Iran today and elsewhere. And in drug imports, again from Afghanistan, Central America, Middle East. It says Clausewitz said it. Politics by other means. It's dirty pool, and all near peers, including us, are up to their necks in it. There is no good guy. You just wear your hometown team's colors and hope you don't lose. That much is truth. I will descend into speculation from this point on. Now for something completely different. You can never trust a narrative, even if its claims are what you want to hear. It might be that college ownership and endowment, the 1% to put it crudely, see the writing on the wall, that the physically attended university system is too unwieldy to carry our educational priorities forward and their financial priorities forward. That change is needed, and claiming it was student unrest causing a, quote, collapse, end quote, lets the higher-ups call foul and expect government bailouts and improvements to be paid for, which will disappear during property and educational priority restructuring and end up in offshore accounts, paid to folks who already have plenty of money. Our best and brightest have created the, quote, conspiracy culture, end quote, by conducting nationwide scams before. The Rural Electrification Act was one such. The hardscrabble farmers it was intended to help in the Dust Belt were booted from their farms by the banks holding their mortgages, who then foreclosed and sold the land to our richest citizens for pennies an acre, who still own it today. For decades, our richest families got their electricity and phone service for free, while small farmers all but vanished due to competition with the rich's economies of scale. One reason we have oppositional forces in government is to limit this sort of evil, which would still go on full bore if litigation had not curbed its lust for increasing the misery of the poor. Sad that those atop those forces of opposition are not themselves above wagging the dog for their own short-sighted benefit or profit. But power corrupts, both my favorites and yours, and nothing can be done about it which does not increase the misery of the poor. I oppose anything that increases the misery of the poor. I oppose revolution. I oppose police states. I oppose terror as a means of moving hearts and minds. I oppose editorial propaganda thinly veiled as news. And most, I oppose narratives that only act to divide us against ourselves. United, we stand. Divided, we buy separately into a big lie and increase the misery of the poor. This is Wild Bill Cox for RedBeard Pirate Radio here on the 12th of May, 2024.